All right. The comment section, I usually put a timestamp in there and tell you when to start because I have to set up at first, and that takes some time. Everything together. And trying to get a hold of Chris, who is not answering right now. Without him, or start without him. All right. Hi. Hello?
Sorry, I was on mute.
Oh, okay, there we go. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Thank you for coming on.
Well, thanks for letting me come on and talk about how much I love Tom Cruise for an hour.
I for somehow remember hearing you on multiple occasions raving about Tom Cruise.
It might have come up before.
All right, so we're already streaming live on YouTube.
Okay. Cool.
So don't say anything racist.
That's probably not going to be a problem.
You're like, thank you for the warning. All right. So, rock.
Okay.
So yeah, well, I mean, yeah, you know talk about things we watched recently, which I haven't seen stuff.
Okay.
But maybe you talk about This Is Us because I have questions about it.
All right.
All right. Welcome to the Watch and Talk. I'm Dylan Shuck.
And I'm Karen Peterson.
In this here, just redo that.
Sorry. Okay.
Redo your.
I'm Karen Peterson.
In this podcast, we're reviewing American Made as well as our top 5 Tom Cruise films. And you can hear all of our previous reviews at thewatchandtalk.com. Big shout out to our Patreon supporters. If you want to be a supporter of the show, you can go to patreon.com/thewatchandtalk. And big shout out to our premium supporters, Shakita, June, and Kaka. And a monthly shout out. Give one of those once a month, shockingly, to Ashley and Endless Mike. And a new sponsor, which is Russ. Thank you very much. And I don't know. Usually I try to find a fun way to segue this in, but whatever. I'm just gonna crank through it this week. Big shout out to CoinCrack, which is one of the sponsors of the show. If you want to boost your social media presence, go to thewatchandtalk.com/CoinCrack. And lastly, we stream these episodes live on YouTube when we air them. So if you hear us address somebody in the chat, then that's what we mean. We mean it's somebody in. And if you search for The Watch and Talk on YouTube, you can subscribe and it'll give you a notification when we're live. Anyway, Karen Peterson.
Hi. How are you?
Welcome to The Watch and Talk. First time on.
Thank you. Yes, it's good to be here.
So why don't you tell people about what you do and your work with Award Circuit?
Well, I do news and sometimes reviews over at awardcircuit.com. I'm also on their weekly podcast, Circuit Breaker. And
which is how I found you.
Which I'm glad you did. So it's a lot of fun.
So I'm a big Oscars person. I'm not a big.
Awesome.
Oh, I can't say I'm a big awards person because the Emmys I have no respect for. Like I think the Emmys are a complete joke.
Yeah,
Um,
pretty much. Yeah.
it's insane that the things that they've overlooked even for nominations are just like, okay, you guys are not speaking my language. When I feel like I don't get that from the Oscars. I mean, there's some times where like I think John Goodman should have been nominated for 10 Cloverfield Lane last year, but
Hmm.
I understand why the collective world didn't think that. So it wasn't like I was offended, but there's other things that I've seen happen in the Emmys. That, like, all right, this is not a serious competition. But Oscars, I've always taken seriously. Ever since my first Oscars I watched was 1995,
Good year.
and that's when Braveheart won.
Yeah.
And 1995 was like one of the best years for movies ever. And I've watched. I haven't watched every one since then, but I've paid attention ever since then, and it's always meant something. So I couple years ago really started paying attention to the races, and I stumbled upon Award Circuit, and I at some point of the year I probably check Award Circuit every 2 days to see where
Hmm.
the standings are, and yeah, that's how I stumbled upon you guys. So if you guys go to the awardcircuit.com, if you guys are interested in the Oscars, they're really good about the race. You guys start having predictions in like February or March for the next year.
Oh yeah. As soon as the Oscars finish, we start into the next season. So
How many times, how
yeah.
many times have you called the Best Picture winner? Um,
There, let's see. Since I've been even before I started with Award Circuit, since I've been predicting Oscar winners, there's only 3 times I think that I've missed Best Picture.
were you wrong this most recent one?
I was very happy to be wrong this
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
I think everybody was wrong. I mean, even the announcer,
Oh, yeah.
even they were wrong when they announced it, which is just that was insane. This is insane Oscars, but yeah, everybody, you guys predicted that early on La La Land, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We thought that was going to take it for a long time, and most people did.
Yeah.
Which is why that last moment was such a shock. And it was actually really too bad to see that happen because that was such a big moment for Barry Jenkins and for everyone involved in Moonlight. And so to have that kind of overshadowed by what happened is a little, it's
And then he
unfortunate.
went up and said his same prepared speech that he had just in case he won.
Hmm.
And it's like it was weird that he was even. It's like I get why you're doing it, but it's just such a weird moment that it just took away the impact of the speech that he had prepared. It.
Yeah, but in 89 years, nothing like that has ever happened.
Yeah.
And so nobody knew what to do about it. So,
And the media started talking about the people backstage that were in charge of it, taking pictures with celebrities and stuff and tweeting them. And then
Yeah.
it's like, uh-oh.
I mean, if there was ever a case for you had one job, I mean,
Yes.
that's it.
So anyway, once Oscars comes around, I'm gonna try to get you to come on here and help me predict.
Sounds good.
So anyway, again, that's at wordsugar.com. I recommend everybody check it out. All right, so first we'd like to start off with what we've watched recently. I haven't watched a ton this week, but there's 2 things I want to point out, and they're both comedy shows. I talked about it last week, but it was just like a montage intro last week for the Comedy Central show Nathan For You. And this week was the actual season premiere. Have you ever seen Nathan For You?
I have not.
Do you know about it?
No.
Okay, so it's like so you know those shows like Bar Rescue or Kitchen Nightmares where
Yeah.
an expert goes to a struggling business and helps improve it?
Yeah. Hmm.
So it's like that, except it's a joke. It's a comedy, and it's a mockumentary. And the Nathan Fielder, the host, he even starts off in the intro, and he said, "And I graduated from one of Canada's top business schools with very good grades." And then it shows his report card, and it shows like a C and a B minus, like an A minus. It just shows like a report card, and that's his only business acumen that he has. And the ideas that he comes up with are really just like, what? That's really stupid. But sometimes he tries to get media attention, and when he does, they show it on the show. So, like, do you remember in LA a couple years ago, Dumb Starbucks?
Yeah.
That was for that show. That was for Nathan Freer.
Oh.
And nobody
Okay.
knew what it was. And his idea was for a struggling coffee shop to call themselves Starbucks. And then he was like, oh, I can't call it Starbucks. So he called it Dumb Starbucks.
Yeah. Okay.
And he just up and did that. And they only lasted for like 3 or 4 days before Starbucks shut them down. And that one got national media attention. So this season premiere, his idea for a struggling diner was, he said, every time he's noticed a couple news articles when a celebrity leaves a really big tip, that it makes national news, and that gives buzz for a restaurant or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, that's my idea for your restaurant to help you get some press, is to have a celebrity come and give a big tip. So then he started looking up celebrity impersonators and going through them and auditioning them and trying to sign a celebrity impersonator. Decides on Michael Richards. And he finds a Michael Richards impersonator that's really good. And then he's like, okay, well, we need a credit card, but a journalist could look this up and see that it's not real. So we needed to actually say Michael Richards on the receipt. So then he started looking in the phone book for people named Michael Richards and called them up, just cold called them and said, can I get your credit card information, charge $10,000, and then give you $10,000 back, and then I'll give you an extra $250. And everyone's like, no. Everyone's like, get out of here. Then he's like, okay, well, then I'm going to pay somebody $1,000 to legally change their name to Michael Richards. So this is how complicated this is getting. And then, at that point, he finds out to have somebody legally change their name, they need to publish it in a newspaper for 4 weeks in a row. So then he's like, well, a journalist could look that up and see that somebody changed their name to Michael Richards, and that will ruin the whole thing. So then he has to make a newspaper. And then he has to have the newspaper distributed to a certain amount of places, but he wants to make it one that nobody will read, so he calls it the Diarrhea Times. And then he goes through all of this situation. Then he finds out the guy who's changing his name to Michael Richards, that he's creating a new bank account with after he changes his name, that he went to jail for armed robbery.
Oh,
so
great.
then he doesn't trust the guy with $10,000 because he's like, wait, he's changed his name legally for $1,000. What would he do for $10,000? So this is just completely convoluted situation, and it's really hilarious to see it all unfold. So Nathan, for you, just to give some people that have never seen it a taste of what the show is like, it's really hilarious to see him just come up with these stupid plans, like to go through all that for a plan that's not that good.
Right. That sounds really funny. That's on Comedy Central, you said?
It's on Comedy Central. And
okay.
He has this deadpan delivery, and he also he's always seeking approval from everybody. He's very Trumpian in that way. Mm-hmm. He's like kind of brags a little bit, and he's trying to seek approval, and he's clearly has no social skills whatsoever. The host, Nathan Fielder. It's really funny. It's a treat to watch. So it's unlike any show that's out there. So. I highly recommend it. And the other thing that I've watched is the new Netflix show. Only 8 episodes. They're half-hour each, and it's called American Vandal.
Oh, yeah.
And it's also a mockumentary, but it's in a How to Make a Murder, or How to Make a Murder, I think that was what it was called, or The Jinx, or Serial, where it was an investigation show, or documentary. The documentary is investigating a crime and getting to the bottom of it, and starts becoming a part of the story. But it's also a mockumentary. It's also comedy. And the main star, the main guy, who's basically takes place in a high school, and the main character is accused of drawing 17 dicks on all the teachers' cars, just a dick on each of the cars, with spray paint. And I have to say, it's pretty funny. My only thing is, man, 8 episodes is too much for it, which is 4 hours total. Mm-hmm. Have you seen? Obviously, you've seen the trailer for this, right?
I have seen the trailer. I haven't watched the show yet, though.
It's pretty funny. I watched the first 4 episodes in one sitting, and then I've kind of staggered it since then. So that tells me something about how I've accepted it. But there are some parts that are really, really funny that have made me really laugh. So if that seems like something that's interesting, Jimmy Tatro, he's a guy who was a YouTube comedian, and I followed him for a long time. I somehow stumbled upon one of his videos a long time ago, and I've always followed him. So it's really cool to see him blow up. And he's the bully that's accused of or the prankster, basically accused of who's really dumb, and he's just really good at playing this bro character, and it's pretty funny. So that's American Vandal, and it's worth at least checking out the first episode to see if it's something. So that's what I watched.
Awesome.
What about you, Karen? What have you watched recently?
Well, this week I love Premiere Week because it's like all my friends are coming back from summer vacation, you know. So this week, two of my favorite shows on TV came back, and it's funny because I don't watch a lot of broadcast TV, but they're both on networks, and one is The Goldbergs, which I love that show. It's like living in my childhood all over again.
It looks bad, so I mean, I obviously am a fan of Jeff Goldberg for his work on Curb Your Enthusiasm, but that always looked cheesy to me. So
no, it's hilarious. So it's Adam F. Goldberg is the creator of the show, and it's about his family when he was growing up. And every episode, well, most episodes are at least tied to something that happened in his actual childhood, that he has like photos and videos and all kinds of things. But it's just this family comedy that takes place in 1980 something. Every episode is really non-specific so that they can have like, oh, one week I went to see E.T. and the next week I went to see, Weird Science.
It rapid fires nostalgia.
Yeah, it's basically just like the 80s as a whole, instead of, like going in sequential order when things happened. So it's just hilarious. And it's, you've got Wendy McClendon Covey is the mother. She's Bev Goldberg, and she is affectionately referred to as a smother because that's exactly what she does. She's just obsessed with how much she loves her kids, and she would do anything for her family, but she's crazy. Like this last episode, the season premiere, the oldest daughter is going off to college, and she went to take her to school, and she ends up spending the night with her in her dorm because she just can't say goodbye. And apparently that's based on what really happened. Apparently when Adam went to college, his mom wouldn't leave. So it's just a really funny show. And I think everyone's
pretty good in it.
Jeff Goldberg's not in it.
Wait. Who am I thinking of?
I don't know. I don't know.
This guy from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I don't watch Curb Your Enthusiasm. But this is Adam F. Goldberg is the creator.
Oh, I was confusing it with. Oh, okay. I'm not even familiar. Oh, Jeff Garland is who I was thinking of.
Oh, Garland. Okay, yeah.
I'm sorry. He is the main character. Yeah, he's or the dad. Maybe not the main character, but the dad at least.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, but yeah, so it's like, so it's the mom and dad, and there's 3 kids, and then there's Grandpa Pops who lives with them too. So it's just a funny show. Everybody is really good. The whole cast is great. The situations are hilarious. You really should give it a try.
Okay. And the other one that you're going to talk about, I'm really curious about.
Yes. The other show, I didn't think I was going to like it when it first started. The only reason I watched it was because of how much I loved Sterling K. Brown in The People vs. O.J. Simpson.
It was a revelation.
Oh, he was amazing. And so when I found out about This Is Us, I tuned in for him, but then almost immediately I fell in love with that show. So that started this week.
I watched the first episode of This Is Us, and it made me tear up, which is pretty shocking for a first hour of something.
Yeah.
But
well, and every episode is like that. I mean, I don't think I've watched a single episode of that show where I haven't at least gotten a little bit teary, even though usually I full on cry. So
it's emotional pornography.
Basically, but it's not cheesy. It always feels good. Like you just are watching this family, and the situations that happen, part of the reason it's so emotional is because they do the right thing a lot of the time, and not necessarily what you think they're going to do. And it's just like, it just feels like, yes, this is how life should be. I love it.
And Milo Ventimiglia, how do you say his name?
Ventimiglia is how I've heard it pronounced. So
he was on Heroes. He was the main character of Heroes.
He was, yeah.
So the problem is the show. Well, for me, it's tough for me to watch network television because it's too many episodes, and that adds filler. and that
Mm-hmm.
that always bugs me. But this seemed like one to invest that amount.
It is, and actually, the network it's only 18 episodes instead of 22, so it is longer than a cable show, but it's not as long as usually network shows are. So
we good news. We have Chris. So I'm gonna add Chris to the call in the middle of the episode, but I guess we can get into our top 5 in the. So I'm gonna add him to the call right now.
All right.
Chris.
Oh, hello everyone.
How are you, Chris?
Hi.
I'm delightful. I've been battling the internet, and I think I'm victorious. I apologize for only now just showing up, but technology, it bites.
Chris is Karen. Karen, Chris.
Hi.
Karen.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm very well.
So we just got through what we watched recently, so we'll get into the top 5. I guess I'll just make an announcement that Chris has added on. So, surprise guest added to the phone call after struggling with the internet for the past this entire running of this episode so far.
I just couldn't stay away.
Chris joined in the episode just in time for the top 5 this week. So, welcome, Chris. All right, so Chris and I were actually shocked to realize that we hadn't done this top 5 yet. And
it's embarrassing.
And we had to jump around because at first we were afraid, or I thought that we must have done it when we did The Mummy earlier this year.
You're right.
The critical darling, The Mummy.
Oh yes.
Which is probably, spoiler alert, definitely the top on all of our top 5 lists this week. I'm assuming.
Oh, obviously.
But we couldn't turn down. We've been wanting to do our top 5 most anticipated movies for the rest of the year, but just been too many other good opportunities to do other ones, so maybe we'll do that next week or the week after. But anyway, we'll do our top 5 Tom Cruise films, and we're going to start off with honorable mentions. Now, this is one of the reasons we had to have Karen on here, because Karen is an unabashed big Tom Cruise.
Oh, yes.
Is it favorite movie star of all time?
Yes.
He's fantastic. Absolutely. I mean, he's fantastic.
He is.
He is a bona fide star. And whenever I hear somebody go, I don't like Tom Cruise, and I'm like, man, first of all, it's time to get over the Scientology thing. And another thing is, Scientology isn't... This is a controversial thing to say, and I'm sorry, but in my opinion, it's not that much crazier than many other religions out there, but we just are used to the other ones, so we don't think it's that crazy. But anyway... he is a bona fide star, and one of the things there was a video I shared that I found about him on The Mummy, and obviously saw The Mummy, the critical darling, Oscar, potentially nominated The Mummy, of him underwater swimming for one of the scenes, doing his own quote unquote stunts. But he's swimming for a long time, from one scuba diver with an air tank to another. And it was more than I could have freaking done. And he doesn't have to do that. Like, he doesn't have to... He could be like, no, I don't want to do that. And have somebody else do it. But he clearly wanted to do it and chose to do it. It's the effort that he puts into his movies, even ones like The Mummy, is I appreciate.
Well, and that's one of the things that makes him so great is the fact that he knows that it totally changes the dynamic of a scene and overall of a film when you can get right in on the actor's face in the middle of a stunt like that. So,
and it's one of those things too, where that effort that he puts into the stunts, it translates into everything that he does on the film, acting, the producing of it. You can just feel this guy cares a lot about his trade. Like, this is his trade. This is the thing that he loves to do, and he wants to be known as the best in the action genres, to be sure. And that effort, you can just tell. You tell that he cares, even if the film is as unfortunate as this year's The Mummy. You can tell that he cared and he did his very best, and the faults of that film really don't lie in his corner.
And a shout out to him as he's still recovering from a broken ankle from the set of Mission Impossible 6. So
it happens. It happens when you do your own stunts and you're
All right. Let's I have some honorable mentions. I'm sure we all do.
A few?
Can't get out.
Good gracious. This list is impossible.
I have like 35 honorable mentions. So
yeah, I was able to lower it down to 4. So I'm gonna list them off real quick. First one I want to mention is Michael Mann's Collateral, which you know what, this was what 2004 when that movie came out.
Maybe 2004.
Sounds about right.
And he had that gray hair look that I wish he'd embrace right now. Man, I wish he'd embrace that right now. Which was obviously him jumping ahead because he wasn't a gray-haired man at that point. But yeah, okay. Anyway, we'll discuss Tom Cruise, what age that he likes to portray at 55, in just a little bit. The second one, I'm gonna refer to it as Live, Die, Repeat, but it's also The Edge of Tomorrow, which I really did want to get into the top 5, but there's too many classics.
It's so good,
to edge out, but it is fantastic. It looked so stupid to me. I had no interest, and it was one of the things that helped me start turning back my mind on Tom Cruise and going through the Cruise renaissance. Rain Man is another one, which is one of his a Best Picture winner of when it came out, 1988 or something like that.
He was nominated for an Oscar for that.
Yeah, and the other one he was also nominated for an Oscar for, and this is more about his performance, which was short for the film, but that is Magnolia. Which, no disrespect for the film, but the standout for this is his portrayal, and that was really good, and not a massive role. And at that point, he was only taking massive roles, so it was cool to that too. And a small shout out to his portrayal in Tropic Thunder. Can't forget that too.
Oh yeah.
Chris, what are your honorable mentions?
So this list for me was one of those situations where oftentimes, and as I'm sure the listener has experienced, I can oftentimes come into these top 5s and be like, well, I will someday watch this film and I think I'll like it, so it'll be on my top 5. This was not the case with Tom Cruise. I've seen a lot of Tom Cruise films and liked a lot of them. And as we oftentimes say when doing lists like this, it is difficult. Like, am I judging the performance or am I judging the quality of the film? And this list is an even kind of like mixture of both. So yeah, I definitely had to include things like Rain Man on my honorable mentions. I think he's fantastic in that. I think he's the perfect foil to Dustin Hoffman's character. I think the pair of them have phenomenal chemistry. And are really great in that film. I also included the Aaron Sorkin written A Few Good Men. It's astoundingly well written from Sorkin, and again, kind of we have the Tom Cruise playing the character that he often plays, but playing it very well. I also included Edge of Tomorrow on my honorable mention list. I too wanted it to make my top 5, but I just felt like there was some kind of more quote unquote classics that I wanted to put above it. But for similar, I was such a surprise because at that point I had seen Oblivion, which I didn't like a whole lot, which was a kind of a post-apocalyptic Tom Cruise film.
Yeah, it was kind of in there in my mind. Like they seemed like similar movies.
And then I had seen Elysium from Neil Blomkamp with Matt Damon. And in that film, Matt Damon has this kind of mecha suit. And I thought that film was abysmal. So I kind of went into this one thinking like, oh gosh, like I don't want this. And it was great. I also included on here Born on the 4th of July, Oliver Stone's Born on the 4th of July. Heart-wrenching performance. So good. Such a really just, moving look at the Vietnam era and kind of like what happens to those that returned from that place, and just really heart-wrenching performance from Tom Cruise. They're really great stuff. And then I also wanted this to be on my top 5, but I just couldn't quite make it. And that's the Last Samurai. It's very much Dances with Wolves, Pocahontas, later Avatar. It's the same exact kind of plot, but it's got a beautiful score. It has some excellent directing from Edward Zwick, and I can't remember his name now, but he's also in. He's a Japanese gentleman. He's also in.
Ken Watanabe.
Ken Watanabe.
Watanabe.
Yeah. He's fantastic in that as well.
Like he's a Spice Girls song.
Exactly. Great dynamic. Some fun action sequences. I remember for me that was kind of like after Lord of the Rings had come out. The Last Samurai was as close as I got to some more epic kind of. Obviously, it wasn't fantasy, but epic kind of sword and sandal sort of film. And Tom Cruise's
final line when he says, "I'll miss our conversations." Oh,
yes.
That always nailed.
Yeah. So, and I always enjoy it when Tom Cruise kind of. allows some of his, because I think Tom Cruise is a fantastic actor. I have nothing to say about him as a person. I will leave that to other people to judge. But I think he's a fantastic actor. And every once in a while, I feel like he allows himself to kind of express some bravado, some arrogance, and some annoying qualities in his performance in a very cool way. And I thought the first half of The Last Samurai, where he kind of plays this drunk, he allowed us not to like him for that first part of the film. I thought that was.
You know what stands out about Last Samurai for me between these other films with Dance with Wolves, Avatar, Pocahontas, they're all similar ideas, is while there was a love interest, the love interest isn't really what got him over to the other side.
So true.
The other three, it was a love interest that got him to the other
Yeah,
side.
I like that.
Now, there was a love interest, but that's not what turned it was his relationship with the general or whatever his name was that broke him down, that switched him over to the other side. And that's something that makes The Last Samurai stand out for me.
Yeah.
What are your honorable mentions, Karen, if we have time in this one podcast? You might have to break this to a 3-part podcast episode.
Oh, man. Yeah. Well, the thing is that he's been in 42 movies, and I've seen all but 3 of them. And
I have to know the 3.
Lions for Lambs.
I've never seen that.
Endless Love was actually the first movie he ever filmed with Brooke Shields. He had a really small part, and then Eyes Wide Shut.
You've never seen Eyes Wide Shut?
Oh my god!
No, I just can't watch it. I can't do it. It makes me so sad. Like, Tom and Nicole's divorce was very sad for me, and
you still haven't gotten over it.
I haven't. You know, that was just as hard for me.
Well, their contract expired, so they were able to part ways.
Yeah, whatever. So, but anyway, so those are the 3 I haven't seen. But out of the 39 that I have, there are only 2 that are objectively bad, and that's The Mummy, which makes me sad.
Wow, that one
not a good movie.
Made the list, yeah.
And Jack Reacher 2. So I did not enjoy that. So those 2 are bad.
I have actively avoided that film.
Jack Reacher 2 was tied for my worst movie of 2016, tied with Secret Life of Pets.
Which I did not see, so.
Yeah, those were tied. But going back and I recently re-listened to my Jack Reacher Never Go Back podcast episode, and it's pretty hilarious if you want to hear if you like hearing me blow off steam. Anyway.
All right, well, I'll check that out. So, but yeah, so out of 37 movies, I have top 5. So really, I have like 32 potential honorable mentions, and it was kind of hard to narrow them down. Magnolia and Born on the 4th of July were both movies that almost made it into my top 5. And if I were just going on performances, they would probably both have been there. But I was just looking at, movies that I enjoy for my top 5. So those 2 are honorable mentions. Another one that I just love, and I watch it pretty much every time it comes on TV, Minority Report. I love that movie. It's just so much fun, and I just love everything about it. So,
I just realized right now a movie I hadn't even thought of was Interview with the Vampire. That just didn't even enter my mind. I have to give an extra honorable mention.
Yeah, it's a great film. Great film.
That was a great. All right, let's start off with our number 5.
Yes.
My number 5, for not only for Tom Cruise's performance, but the writer is my favorite screenplay writer, and excited about his first directorial debut coming up this year. And there's A Few Good Men. I've never seen a writer so effective at making action sequences out of dialogue. And this is one of the most famous dialogue action sequences of all time. Is the You Can't Handle the Truth scene of A Few Good Men. And
well, you can't handle the truth, Dylan. So it's just it's just the truth.
And just it reminds me of that Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs scene from Steve Jobs. Just such a powerful action sequence with just dialogue. So that's A Few Good Men was a standout, and a nice young Tom Cruise.
Mm-hmm.
What's your number 5, Chris?
Yeah, so my number 5, I'm gonna cheat, and then I'm gonna bite the bullet and make myself decide. But my number 5 is the Mission Impossible franchise.
We could do that.
No, I'm cheating, but I will also specify which one I like most.
Okay.
I think for me, the first Mission Impossible film is just the classiest of all of them. I would contend that the third Mission Impossible has the most heart. I think that J.J. Abrams, in the way that he brought the Michelle Monaghan wife character into there, brought a lot to that franchise, and I liked what that did for the kind of like very sort of superhero character of Ethan Hunt. I thought that number 4 had the best action sequences in it. I thought that Brad Bird as a director just did a phenomenal job. And number 5 for me came the closest to achieving some of the really cool espionage that we got from the first film.
Perfect. Perfect.
Just all around phenomenal film. It just didn't quite have the highs that I felt like number 4 did for action, and didn't quite for me match the level of just like kind of general espionage that I felt was really in the first film. Number 2, I kind of try and forget about. I'm not a huge fan of the second one. And I am very, very excited to see number 6. It's one of those ridiculous situations where after the second film came out, I was like, well, this franchise is done. And then especially after the third one came out and did not do well at the box office, it's just it makes me very happy that we have a Tom Cruise franchise that continues to go strong. So yeah, just kind of for partially nostalgia, but I also do think that the first one has some of the best espionage sequences around. I will put the first Mission Impossible as my number 1.
Spoiler.
So you were saying spoilers for the Mission Impossible
I was
film?
like, do you remember the shock? I was like, why aren't you guys agreeing with me on anything? Do you remember the complete and utter shock of the most of the cast members that the movie was advertised on being killed off in the first 15 minutes of it?
Yes,
absolutely.
And I went and saw it in the theaters. I was 11 years old, and it was marketed with Emilio Estevez and Jean Reno and all this, and I mean, adding on to the spoiler, Jean Reno wasn't actually killed at the beginning like we thought he was, but or same with John Voight. But just to see all of them killed, and especially Emilio Estevez getting that spike down his throat from the elevator, it was just such a shock. And
that scarred me. I saw that movie very, very close to when it came out in theaters, which I think was 96, if I remember correctly.
Right.
Yeah, 96. And I was decently young at that point. And had not seen anything that kind of suspenseful and violent. And that moment where the spikes came down, that scarred me. That was like, that stuck in my mind for the longest time.
What was so great about it was that it set up the fact that anything could happen in this movie and no one was safe. And that's what made it so much fun, I thought.
So Chris's top 5 is 5 movies.
They're all there. Yeah, that's it. I'm done now. I tapped out. You guys can continue on without me.
All right, Karen, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is actually Rain Man. I just love everything about it. Dustin Hoffman is great. Tom Cruise is just awesome. I love the way that his character grows and it actually feels natural. Like he has this emotional, evolution, I guess. And it's funny, it's charming, it makes you cry. Like it's I
good
just
for
love
the public too, right? Like it makes you more empathetic to situations that you might not be like understand just as a viewer watching yours.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, so that's 5.
My number 4, we've already spoken about it, but it's The Last Samurai. Interesting enough, same director as Jack Reacher Never Go Back, I believe, if I remember that correctly. Edward Zwick.
You are correct. It's amazing how he's fallen.
And same director as Pawn Sacrifice, and that was my worst movie of 2015 for me. So,
he also made Glory, which is a great film.
Very good film. But back-to-back years, he had my worst movie of the year.
Well done, Zwick.
But he made the top 4 for Mission Impossible, or for Tom Cruise movies. Last Samurai. Number 4, Chris.
Yes, so my number 4 is Magnolia. I love Paul Thomas Anderson as a director and as a writer, and I think for me this is my favorite film of his. It's absolute. It's absolute. Oh yeah, definitely. For me, the real competition actually comes down between this and actually Punch Drunk Love. I love There Will Be Blood, but for me, Punch Drunk Love just hit a note when I saw it that was just like, wow, this is, and also it felt just so different to the rest of the films. Anyways, Magnolia is definitely an ensemble piece, absolutely an ensemble piece, but especially for Tom Cruise's character, there is a level of growth, kind of even referring what Karen was just talking about with Rain Man, that I really identified with and appreciated that he went, and it was a dynamic piece of growth too, that he underwent in that film, being such a despicable person at the beginning. Yeah, I mean, his scenes are extremely memorable for unfortunate reasons, and yeah, I think he does just a bang up job in that film, and is certainly doing something very different than what you might see in Edge of Tomorrow or the Mission Impossible franchise or even The Last Samurai. He's given a bit more to play with as an actor, and really kind of shines in that. So yeah, that's a number 4.
As much as I love Michael Caine, it still makes me mad that he's got Tom Cruise's Oscar sitting on his mantle.
For what movie?
Well, Michael Caine won for Cider House Rules
over Jerry Maguire.
Yeah, no, over this one, Magnolia. Yeah.
I think that
Michael Caine.
I would say Jerry Maguire, but
we'll get there.
Who did you lose out to? And yeah, well, okay. You're our Oscar encyclopedias. All right, you're up.
My number 4.
Your number 4.
So I went into the Mission Impossible franchise as well, and I actually was right on with everything you just were saying, Chris, about, number 1 is just awesome. It's like really sets up this great franchise. Number 3 has all the emotional weight of it. I actually picked my favorite as number 4, Ghost Protocol.
Right, yeah.
Because of those awesome action sequences.
They're so good.
He's climbing the Burj Khalifa. It was just like so amazing. It's like I can't remember another action sequence that had that much of an impact. Like it's just I love
outstanding. It. Yeah,
yes,
it's so good.
Yeah. And he did that. That's the thing that I keep coming back to. Like he did that. So yeah.
My number 3 is also a Mission Impossible movie, and it's a different one. You guys, I don't know how you guys can say the third has the most. I mean, I get it's just phony though. Like the emotion in it, we had never seen this wife before that he cares so much about. So for me, I was just like, you're just putting it in there and be like, look, we have to care about this. So 3 for me is the worst. I also that's when I think Chris and I have argued about this, when they go the craziest with the masks. I think it's 3, and you think it's 2.
Yeah.
But I found them completely insane in number 3 with the masks. But also at the time,
but they showed how it was made, and it was super cool.
At the time that I watched Mission Impossible 3, 24 was at its, and it was really hard for me to watch an espionage thriller that I had just 24 had just had its best season, and it just didn't live up in any way, shape, or form. So I think that affected my enjoyment of Mission Impossible 3, and I haven't seen it since. But when Mission Impossible 6 comes out, I'm sure
give it a go, man.
I'll watch all 6 of them in order, and we'll rank them, I'm sure, when we get. But my favorite of them is Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. I went into it without high expectations whatsoever. Expected not to hate it or anything, but I just wasn't expecting anything, and it became one of my favorite movies of the year. I absolutely loved it. Rebecca Ferguson was a complete stud in it. And the villain was so good in that movie. So Mission Impossible.
And Rebecca Ferguson's going to be in number 6 as well.
Yes.
Yeah, as is Michelle Monaghan. She's back, which makes me excited.
Yeah.
My number 3 is a movie that's already been mentioned, and that's Michael Mann's Collateral. Again, it's one of those things where Tom Cruise is similar in my mind to Tom Hanks, where I always know that he's going to bring a great performance to the film. But what really elevates any given film that he's in, beyond just, I already like this because it's Tom Cruise, is if he really is pushing himself and challenging himself to do something slightly different. And even as it's, perhaps a quote unquote little thing, his hair is gray and he's playing an older person. It was just interesting, especially at that time where, he dyed his hair unnaturally. To make himself look older. He wasn't yet that actual age. It added that extra bit of dimension. And I think Michael Mann, too, is just a phenomenal director of actors. And I think he pushed and prodded Tom Cruise, which is impressive because, no one seems to be able to push him more than himself to bring a little bit more to that role than we even normally see. And again, similar to what I mentioned with Rain Man, where he and Dustin Hoffman were fantastic foils to one another, Jamie Foxx and Tom Cruise together were just dynamite. I thought they were so electric, and that the film is just one of those great films too that takes place over one night, and that's always interesting, having a compressed timeline like that, then it feeling natural. And then, too, it was just interesting having Tom Cruise play the fixed point. He wasn't the one that really underwent some sort of character arc. The film is Jamie Foxx's film, but he absolutely is the catalyst in that character arc. And being this immovable object was just a fantastically fun time to watch. And he's a total BA assassin, so it's great.
There's a scene in it where in one fluid motion, and it is just to show you, like, you can't fake this kind of stuff, and you could if you wanted to. They could probably have a double do it, or somebody that's trained. But he is so trained in firearms for this movie that he disarms somebody when one fluid motion flips the gun around, cocks it, shoots them, and then takes the gun apart.
It's intense.
All in one fluid motion. And there was a GIF that was spreading around on Twitter or Reddit or something like that a couple months ago for it, and I was like, somebody pointed it out, and I looked at it, I was like, that is like something you so easily just see and then move on. But Tom Cruise actually did all of it, and he was really good at it, and he made it look so natural. It's pretty impressive, the work he puts in.
Absolutely.
Fantastic stuff.
What's your number 3, Aaron?
My number 3, I'm actually surprised no one's even said it yet, but I'm guessing that's because you guys have it a little higher, maybe. Top Gun.
Top Gun?
Embarrassingly, I have not seen Top Gun.
What?
Yeah, I know.
How is that possible?
It's just one of those ones that I was never allowed to watch when I was younger, when all of my friends were watching it. You know, my parents were like, "Oh, it's R-rated. No, we're not going to watch that."
Oh my gosh.
And I just haven't gotten around to it
for today, so you need to go watch Top Gun. It's like one of the best movies ever. I love that movie.
Top Gun's my number 2, so we can discuss. Okay. I can discuss my number 2 with you.
All right. Well, sounds good.
But yeah, that's when he became an action star.
Exactly. And that's another movie too where it has, it's got all the fun action, it's got some hilarious comedy, and it's got that emotional, some emotional heft to it as well.
And so sexuality.
It does. I actually saw it when I was 9, and I just remember sitting in the theater with my dad and my brother, and I was like, why is that girl licking him? That's gross.
Same experience I had at 9 years old watching Eyes Wide Shut. So it was the exact same.
Oh wow! Holy cow! Did you actually watch that when you were 9 years old?
No, I mean it came out when I was 14, but I watched it.
Good gracious!
When it was brand new on video, I watched it. But it's that movie thinks it's more pornographic than it is, but it's still pretty. It's still pretty intense.
Yeah.
So okay, what's your number 2, Chris Hartwell?
Yes, my number 2 is Minority Report. Part of it comes from the fact that this is a Steven Spielberg film, and for me, this is one of, if not his best film of the 21st century. I just think it's brilliant. It, for me, showed me, and this is kind of, I think, before I watched Blade Runner and before I watched other kind of R-rated dystopian futures. But for me, it was the first example of a sci-fi film really not kind of just being fun and in the sense that like there was just a lot of darkness in it, there was a lot of grossness in it. The texture and the world that Cruise and Spielberg created together was just really kind of unpleasant in a very interesting way. And too, like the
Spielberg started this whole really glossy film style. Actually, he did it with AI also.
Yeah.
And then he's done that kind of ever since.
Well, what was cool with Minority Report is that he actually got together people from car manufacturers and clothing designers and
so
all
what's
kinds
the future
of things.
Gonna look like?
Right. He said, design what you think the future will look like in 50 years.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah.
And then just the whole character that Cruise plays with this, dire mission to basically say, like, I'm not going to kill someone in the future was just fantastic. And then the specific twists and turns that film takes, which I certainly found unexpected at the time, are excellent. And the action sequences are amazing because Spielberg is, the man, and having Tom Cruise in them is pretty great. And I really, really enjoy Minority Report a lot.
I think I would choose War Horse as my favorite film of his since.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow,
interesting.
interesting.
Right now, I don't even know what I would have compete But I do need to rewatch War of the Worlds because I haven't seen it since it first came out, and
it's okay.
I need to rewatch Minority Report.
It's so good. Do it.
Yeah, my favorite Spielberg since 2000, Minority Report and Munich.
Yeah, Munich.
Catch Me If You Can is so good too. I mean, I really enjoy Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
But it's crazy because in the 90s he made three complete masterpieces, and it hasn't been a masterpiece since then. Like, I don't think any of these other ones I would consider up to the level of Saving Private Ryan, Jurassic Park, or Schindler's List.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. There's a lot of hope writing on The Post, which comes out in December. So
right, and man, he's been working on Ready Player One forever. So we'll see how that turns out. Anyway, he goes back and forth. That's one for the studio and one for himself. One for the studio, one for himself. So Ready Player One is definitely for the studio.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And what's your number 2, Karen?
My number 2 actually already came up, and that is A Few Good Men.
Nice.
What I love about it is, I mean, like you already mentioned, I mean, obviously, Aaron Sorkin's dialogue is just so amazing. But I love how he uses that dialogue in moments where it's like, it'll either lighten the levity of a situation or just like, I don't know, you really get so much out of all of the characters. I love the casting. Everything about this movie is great. Like, even in those scenes where, like, for example, the scene in the bar where Kevin Bacon is trying to convince him, you got to plea this out. And, he's telling him, like, all the consequences if he goes after, Jack Nicholson and stuff. And then he gets up and just walks away. And then Tom Cruise stands up and he's just like, he wants to say something, but he doesn't know what. So then he's like, "You're a lousy softball player," and it's just like hilarious, but it's like that there's so much more behind that. So, so great. Love it.
Also, one other thing that I also wanted to say now that since I've obviously been looking through his list so much, I do want to give a shout out to Valkyrie too. I thought that was a pretty impressive movie at a time where everything was against Tom Cruise, and is a movie I appreciated, especially the last scene of it is burned in my mind.
Yes.
Okay, so my number 1, maybe it's everybody's number 1.
It might be. I haven't heard it.
Yeah, since nobody said it so far. Jerry Maguire.
Yep.
It's not your number 1, Chris?
It's not, no.
Have you seen Jerry Maguire?
I should have mentioned it on my honorable mentions, I suppose. It's funny. It's one of those unfortunate situations where I watched it way too late, and by the time I finally had seen it, every single line was just a catchphrase. Every single line was just like, "Show me the money," or "You had me at hello," and like things I just heard a million times. They weren't the movie; they were just something else. So I really need to rewatch the film again and allow it to be what it is. And try and view
it recently. I rewatched it recently. And then I
rewatch it every time it's on TV.
I think as of late, Cameron Crowe has a lot of misses, but he also has done Almost Famous, which I think is a masterpiece. I actually enjoy Elizabethtown, so I enjoy Cameron Crowe as a director, and I want to enjoy this more than I did.
You Had Me at Hello, You Complete Me Help You, Show Me the Money, Human Head Weighs 8 pounds or whatever. There's so many. You're right. It's just like there's so many you could name from the movie. It is so the epitome of feel-good movie syrup, concentrated feel-good movie syrup. And it just works so well. Jerry Maguire is my favorite.
Absolutely. Yep, mine too. And just so you know, he lost the Oscar that year to Jeffrey Rush in Shine.
See, I can't necessarily disagree with that because
exactly,
it's unbelievable in Shine.
But you know who else was nominated that year was Ralph Fiennes for The English Patient, which won Best Picture. So it's like that was actually a pretty tough competition that year. So.
Yeah. But he lost to somebody with the Kings of Maine, or wait, what is it? Kings of Maine, Sons of bring it up.
Princes of Maine, Sons of New England. Yeah, I think.
Sorry, somebody out there is listening to this. How we get screwed. Anyway, what's your number?
Because I'm bitter. That's why.
What's your number 1 of all time?
For me, my number 1 is actually a film that Karen has not seen, and that's Eyes Wide Shut. This is one of those films that I wouldn't willfully probably watch again. but that's saying something, I think, because it was that powerful, and I felt like what Kubrick did, exploring the ideas of infidelity and exploring the ideas of fantasy and exploring the ideas of longing and emptiness. It's so hypnotic, it's so captivating, and it's so just heart-wrenching. And I feel like part of it was the fact that I watched it knowing that ultimately Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman were together, and then they weren't. And then part of it was just having to admit that their performances in that film and that the performances that Kubrick got out of them were just outstanding. There was one scene in particular that he shot over 100 different takes for every single angle, intentionally wanting to essentially just exhaust them. And you can see the level of intention in scenes like that and them feeling so real. And so like you couldn't have gotten that any other way. And I think that where he pushes Tom Cruise is outstanding, and yeah, just the twists and the turns in that film are like they're extremely captivating, and they're just put me on the edge of my seat, and also disturbed me in just the right way. I think the film is a masterpiece. It's one of my favorite Stanley Kubrick films, and I think Tom Cruise in it is just phenomenal.
You're making me want to revisit it, my friend.
It's one of those things that it's like the exact opposite of the feelings that you were just describing for Jerry Maguire. This is like not sugary. This is not sweet. You're not going to put this on to feel good about life. But it causes you to think. And
it was a daring movie for Tom Cruise to take at the time, for sure.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
In the chat, Paul gave his top 5. He said A Few Good Men, Minority Report, Jerry Maguire, Top Gun, and Tropic Thunder.
Nice, Tropic
Thunder. Tropic Thunder. I mean, when I saw that movie, like they didn't tell anybody he was going to be in it, and so I'm watching it, and I'm like, that guy sounds like Tom. Oh my God, that is Tom Cruise
in a fat suit.
Yeah, that was all his idea. So.
And Shakita gave her top 5, saying Jerry Maguire, Rogue Nation, Top Gun, Tropic Thunder, and A Few Good Men. So I think
awesome.
That's
good list.
They both had Tropic Thunder on it, but Shakita uses the same as mine, except for Land of the Last Samurai in place of Tropic Thunder. Anyway, guys, let us guys at listening at home or wherever you guys are listening to this, tweet us in at The Watch and Talk, or email us at thewatchtalk@gmail.com. Let us know what your top 5 Tom Cruise movies are, and yell us if we forgot one. But I think we covered any that would be on anybody's list. But maybe me saying that even offended somebody farther, so I apologize for that. Anyway, let's get into our review of American Made. The plot summary for the film, it's these succinct plot summaries that I love the most. It really just adds a bunch for me. A pilot lands work for the CIA and is a drug runner in the South during the 1980s. I like it says in the South, which you would assume is like... I mean, well, it is. He lives in
Alabama
South.
And Louisiana.
Right, you're right. But... he's not really, okay, it's south and then farther south.
Right.
So when we do these, we give a non-spoiler review at the beginning without anything that isn't in the trailers, basically. And then we have a spoiler section at the end. So we're going to give our basic non-spoiler reviews, our discussion of it, and our letter grade. And then we switch over to... So stick around if you have seen it or if you don't care about spoilers. In the meantime, it's safe to still listen. So, Chris, why don't you give your non-spoiler review of American?
Absolutely. For me, this film told me very, very quickly what kind of film it was going to be and what kind of character we were basically going to be following in it. And this is just in one of the opening scenes. This isn't a big spoiler at all, so don't worry. But basically, as you saw in the trailer, Tom Cruise initially starts out as this commercial airline pilot, flying people all around North America, and he is very clearly very bored. I don't know if he's meant to be midlife in the film or if he's trying to play younger than that, but he's kind of having a midlife crisis, it would seem anyways. And he, in this scene, basically takes his plane out of automatic pilot and kind of, jostles the joystick and kind of creates a little bit of a stir, obviously, as it would. And he's just like, he's just doing it for the fun of it. He's just doing it because he's bored and he needs a bit of spice and excitement in his life. And the entire rest of the film, for the most part, pretty much every single decision that he makes is made for that same reason. He's just like, I want a little bit more, I think. I'm a little bit kind of, I can do better than this. And I kind of just want it for a bit of fun, for a bit of extra spice in my life. And let's go for it, Let's achieve the American dream, I guess. And because of that, the film actually has I think intentionally so, this kind of lighter, kind of inconsequential tone, again, for most of the film, where things feel like he's almost like this kind of Superman that can kind of just somehow bounce down this really treacherous hill and get up at the bottom and kind of just dust himself off and walk on, kind of like Tom Cruise in real life. And because of that, yeah, again, you have this kind of lighter feel in the film where things don't feel like they can ever really touch him until they start to touch him. And I'm definitely not going to spoil this, but ultimately where the plot goes, I found to be incredibly appropriate as compared to where it started, and gave me a very fantastic journey to follow. And I also really like what Doug Liman, the director, was doing on this film. If you guys don't know, Doug Liman also partnered with Tom Cruise on Edge of Tomorrow, and I thought they had a fantastic collaboration there. It's no surprise to me at all that they paired up again with this film. And
sometimes
Doug
you have
Liman,
to
the
live,
director,
die, and repeat the same actor-director combo.
Get out of here. But no, it was very clear that Doug Liman was wanting to, in his photography style, match that character arc. And what I mean by that is the photography felt kind of intentionally unplanned, intentionally loose, intentionally kind of gross feeling a lot of times. There wasn't this desire to make it look like The Wolf of Wall Street, for example, because, in The Wolf of Wall Street, we follow this character who falls into crime and reaps the benefits of that lifestyle in a lot of ways. And in a similar way, that's kind of Tom Cruise's arc in this film as well. But here, as compared to The Wolf of Wall Street, the photography never made that all that glamorous. It was kind of gross feeling. Like the saturation was too high. The whites were oftentimes blown out. The resolution was low at certain points. And I felt like Doug Liman was trying to match that style. And then two, he was also switching things up, seemingly for the quote unquote fun of it, visually too, like having people break the fourth wall, these crazy jump cuts, smash zooms, even animated sequences that again kind of just were seemingly switching things up to switch things up. And I really appreciated that in the film too. You will clearly experience a very strong political statement in this film. Doug Liman very clearly has a specific outlook on American politics. He didn't feel like he was necessarily coming down hard on Republicans or Democrats, which I appreciated, but he definitely has a bit of a pessimistic outlook on our government and how things are run, and kind of the vicious cycle of how that leadership inspires and allows for people like Tom Cruise to do what they do, but also people being, kind of greedy and just desiring something new and fresh, like Tom Cruise, also inspires the government to do what they do. I personally didn't feel like it got in the way of the narrative all too often, and I appreciated that. And then I'll say one last thing. I felt like the film was maybe just a little bit too long, but just ever so slightly. It didn't ultimately, I feel like, detract from it too much, that it went on for maybe 10 minutes too long.
I'd say about 15 minutes too long.
Okay, yeah, I can agree with that. But yeah, ultimately, I really did enjoy the film a lot. I thought Tom Cruise was great. I don't think this film for him would have made my top 5, but it definitely would be an honorable mention. Especially after The Mummy, it's just nice to see him doing a film that I thought was well made and that he could kind of actually, be proud of. So yeah, for all these reasons, I'll give the film a nice, very solid B+, almost A-, but I think B+ is a good grade for me.
All right, Karen, where are you at with American Made?
I actually agree with a lot of what Chris just said. I thought it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the sometimes kind of frenetic camera work to it. I thought that added a lot to just how Barry is just kind of going along with whatever, like he just doesn't say no. He's just like, sure, I'll do, smuggle drugs, smuggle people, whatever.
Anytime a new offer is made to him to make more money, he says
okay.
Yes, even when he doesn't need it. Yeah, even when
right.
It shows that he doesn't need money. He's burying money.
He doesn't even know what to do with his money. He can't hide any more of it, but he's still just like, yeah, all right, whatever, I'll go along with it. One thing, it's interesting, one thing that I was thinking as you were talking, Chris, about the political aspect of it, my one criticism of the movie is that I felt like it was a little bit too surface level on some of that stuff. It definitely shows like, hey, the government was doing some, very questionable things, but I felt like it really didn't get enough into like how bad some of these things were. And I found myself questioning for people who didn't, who weren't of age, I guess, in the 80s or early 90s, like how much they really understood about who Pablo Escobar was or how big of an impact Iran Contra was and Oliver North and all that. So I was curious about that. So, but overall, I thought the movie was a lot of fun. I would like to have seen more from the supporting actors.
What about Domhnall Gleeson? I thought he was pretty good.
Man, he was really good, and I wanted to see more of him. Yeah, like I felt like they needed to go one of two ways. Either they needed to kind of pull him out of it a little bit more and give you this sense of like, I know this is based on a true story, but come on, did this really happen? Or put more of him in it and really inject like that aspect of just how in deep he was with the government, you know? So I needed one way or the other. But I thought Domhnall Gleeson was good. I thought that, what's her name that played his wife? I thought she was good. Sarah Wright, she was a lot of fun, but she also needed, I needed more from her. And Jesse Plemons too, as the sheriff. I was like, why is Todd from Breaking Bad there? Yeah. Like he's in like a couple of scenes and he doesn't really do much, and it felt kind of weird, but still fun to see him. So I just would have liked more from the supporting cast. So, but overall, I really enjoyed it.
I'll talk about some in spoilers that they really dropped the ball on of a possibility with his wife should have done. That's dealing with consequences for something that happens. Mm-hmm. There's no consequences for something. I think
probably. So, but yeah, I'm gonna agree with Chris too. On my grade is a B+. So.
All right, so you know what? It's exciting. So Chris, I'm not Chris. Tom Cruise. Sorry, I get those confused.
We're basically the same person.
Tom Cruise. He's an older man, and one of our biggest problems with the Mummy is that his love interest was half his age, and he was playing like a 35-year-old man at 55, and it was just so awkward to see it the way that it played out. So it's exciting in this movie because it starts off in 1978, and Tom Cruise is playing the age he was in 1978. So it's kind of all makes sense to see the setting of him playing at that point. That was just a joke. Supposed to laugh. No, I'm joking.
I didn't want to break up your,
no, but he at least isn't playing like a young bachelor. Like he's playing a family man. So he doesn't seem like he's playing a character that is too young for him at this point. Maybe just on the cusp, but it's also because he is aged well. But I love Domhnall Gleeson in this movie completely. He's one of those characters that while he talks about, intense things that you shouldn't be able to talk about while you're eating, to show apathy, and it's really good at it. Movies can be really effective when they show a character like him eating while he's talking about, people dying or drug smuggling or high crimes or treason or whatever the case. I really, really love the exposition scenes in this. Like, there's graphics explaining his routes of flying and what he's doing and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, but I have to say one thing on that. Sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
It really bothered me. So there's a part where he's talking about when he was going into Nicaragua, and they've got the map, and he writes Nicaragua, and then he crosses it out, and he goes, and he goes, oh, no, sorry, that's El Salvador. Nicaragua's down here. I'm like, no, that's Honduras. And there's and it bugged me because there's no...
it's layered. It's so layered.
It's still wrong.
Well, guys, here's the thing: this is my next note says he even made a quickly corrected geographical error. Who was he making that error? Like, who was he talking to when he made that error? Because
that's when he's making those videos.
Yeah, he's making these videos, but he's not drawing a map on the video. He's just talking to it. So when he's like, "No, that's not it. This is it." Like, who is he possibly talking to?
You're right. That's a good point.
He was holding up a map, and maybe in reality, but they wanted to, show.
I was just saying it was pretty meta. I don't mean that as a complaint. I'm saying it's kind of funny that it's kind of.
It was funny. You're right. That's a good point.
But here's the thing: is he's making money every inch of the way, taking guns from one place to one place, and from that place he's taking coke to another place, and from that place he picks up people, takes them to another place. He is capitalizing every step of the way. And I love to see how smart he is. He's smarter than the people that are hiring him in some situations, at least for the plan that he's doing. He's like, wait, no, that's stupid. Let's do it like this, and then nobody gets caught. And then they're like, but and also he never really, he never seemed to even think, like, I don't want to say he never like dealt with what the consequence of what he's doing, or the morality of what he's doing, because he just never even seemed to think about it. He was just like, oh, this is making money, I'm going to do it. And for better or for worse, I loved the first 2 acts. I turned over the person I'm watching it. I'm like, I love this movie. I am absolutely loving this movie. But the final 20 minutes, it just kind of not zapped away, but it this movie was very fast paced, and it chugged to a finish. And I just wish that 15 minutes of that was cut out and the movie just ended a little quicker. I think that it would have ended a little more of a high note for me. This movie wasn't A territory for me, but that's how enjoyable the first 2 acts are, if you ask me. But I ended the exact same place as you guys. Just like Chris said, I really kind of in the cusp between A- and B+. Normally I say if I'm in the cusp, I bump it to the higher one, but this one, it's just, the grade just feels right too much. B+. It is very close to A territory, though. Anything else to add? Did I lose you guys?
No,
I'm here. I'm listening. You're riveting. You're riveting.
Yeah.
Anything else we want to add before we switch to spoilers?
Yeah, let's spoil this thing.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Where can people follow you on the internet, just in case we lose some people, Chris?
We don't want to lose you guys, but yes, we do. You guys can find me on Twitter as well as on YouTube. Simply search Chris Hartwell or The Heartbeat on YouTube, Heart spelled Hart.
What about you, Karen M. Peterson? Where can people follow you on the internet?
I am on Twitter and Instagram at Karen M. Peterson, and also at awardcircuit.com.
And both of those are in the show.
All right.
For me, you can follow me at Shuckster. That's SCHUCKSTER. And I going back to Award Circuit. Once again, I can't recommend their website enough. I actually shouldn't I shouldn't be recommending it, because then I can just steal you guys' content and say the predictions are my own. But if you don't look at awardcircuit.com, you're probably going to hear some of the predictions, and I'll pass them off on the show. For the show, you can follow us at The Watch and Talk. You can email us thewatchtalk@gmail.com. You can go to our Instagram at The Watch and Talk. Go to our Facebook at facebook.com/thewatchandtalk, or our website at thewatchandtalk.com. Next week, we will be reviewing Blade Runner 2049. It's finally here. I'm getting pretty excited. I wasn't excited as everybody else is, but I'm getting pretty excited. Not gonna lie.
Just hearing all the good things. Oh, it's getting me excited.
And without further ado, let's switch to spoilers. Okay, so what I was alluding to earlier, and I'm sure you guys knew what I was talking about, but I don't understand what having JB, her little brother, did if there didn't cause a rift between him and his wife from him getting killed in a car bomb. And that car bomb was pretty shocking, by the way. And it was
yes,
gory.
That one was great.
I actually totally thought that was coming. As soon as they pull up to his car,
I did too.
I was like,
but
he's going to get in that car and it's going to blow up.
But once he started driving away, I had stopped thinking that.
Oh, okay.
I
still did. I don't know.
But yeah, I think for me the reason that I
done more if his wife and him had a wedge between them because of that.
I agree. I mean, it doesn't surprise me she didn't know that her brother, died, but the fact that he's being sent away definitely should have caused a problem for them. I completely agreed with that.
And he was disgustingly played by Caleb Landry Jones, who was most recently Get Out.
Yeah.
And the similar. The thing is, sucks for him, but he'll never be able to play like a non-disgusting reptilian character.
It's true. Yeah.
But I mean, he was in X-Men First Class too.
He's having a big year this year too. He's also in the Florida Project, and he's got 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. So.
Oh, he's like what Domhnall Gleeson was in 2015.
Exactly.
He had done that year. He did Ex Machina. He did The Revenant. He did Brooklyn, and he did Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I guess none of these are as big as Star Wars, but that was just a big year for Domhnall Gleeson. yeah, this guy, obviously, I'm sure in a year or two, we're gonna see this guy get some type of award. That seems to be heading. That's the right time in someone's career to start taking it an Oscar.
Yep, absolutely.
But yeah, I really love JB's intro too, because the second we got him, we see him talking to the camera, and he's like, JB.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do I say?
JB.
Yeah.
I think that was a great intro too, if you ask me, because that kind of set up, because the whole time we're like, uh-oh, everything's going to run, because everything was going so right before that. We got this awesome 1982 montage with him and money and a new mansion, all the fronts he was building, all the money he was bearing, fast-paced music. It was so fun, and then the JB thing kind of started breaking everything.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Which, career-wise for him, or I mean, if you can call it a career, that's where things started to go wrong. But like you were saying, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot in his personal life. It was like, oh yeah, that sucked, and that did lead to ultimately to what happened to him. But I don't know, like it didn't feel like there was any sort of an emotional impact from the JB situation.
Did it lead to what happened to him? I guess it hinted that the FBI agent saw him with the money. But I think that I mean, I don't know. It didn't show that ATF found him through that, or I mean, I guess state police noticed him.
No, I think the sense I got was just that kind of was what put him on people's radar. It didn't directly lead to his downfall, but it contributed, I thought.
How much the whole time were we going, oh my god, how could you be so stupid? This is so stupid. Don't do this.
Yeah, and I think part of ultimately what the JB character did for me, and especially his demise, was it made the kind of like that final act after Tom Cruise has sent his family away and he's basically living in these hotels.
Yeah.
It upped the tension. You knew that the cartel could get not only to them, but in a way that was actually kind of surprising. Like, oh wait, like at what point did they actually put that bomb on that car? Because we, are made to assume that Tom Cruise parked JB's car there because he was taking him to there to leave. So at some point between when he parked that car and came back with JB, the cartel came and got a bomb there. So I think that definitely it put in our mind, like, you know what? These guys are very, very powerful and they can get to you wherever you're at.
I also loved, though, how they kind of broke up that tension a little bit with the humor of him telling people, like, can you just step back? I got to start my car.
Yeah, I didn't like
that.
Yeah. See, I didn't like this paranoia at the end. To deal with all of it and then to have it end with him just getting killed was like...
But see, I didn't think it was paranoia. I think he knew it was going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
But he couldn't hide because he had to do that community service.
Right. And but the multiple scenes when it was going on of him getting his car waiting to get killed and him doing the community service, just to end with him getting shot like that left me unfulfilling. I wish they made us feel safe and then have him come up and get killed. But I guess the point that you're bringing up is that he didn't feel safe. He was ready to get killed. But why just throw your hands up in the air? I really wish it showed him saying to the actor, Shield, I don't remember what it is. Benito Martinez. When he the head of the DEA, when he was like, you know the risks. I wish it showed him saying, you have to hide us. Please hide us. I just did everything I could to try to save. Please just try to hide me. I'm not asking for much. You can keep everything, but can you please hide my family and I, or at least saying, can you hide my family? I think that would have made the personal feeling be a little more emotional for us as a viewer if you heard him saying, pleading for his family's life, saying, I don't care about myself, but please hide my family, because his family, also was, they were in danger still, and we never really saw. I don't know. Also, there was no prologue for the Colombians, which I know we all know what happens to Pablo Escobar, but still. But
do we we do, but the average viewer, are they? This is what I was talking about before. How much common knowledge really is that? I'm not sure.
I think Pablo Escobar dying is common knowledge, but the other guy, I don't know what happens to him or when he gets his or anything like that. I wish that we got a prologue with them.
Mm-hmm. You mean an epilogue?
An epilogue, sorry.
Epilogue, yeah.
Yeah, an epilogue. The way we got with one of his pilots that dies in a plane crash or whatever.
Right.
Why don't we get that with the Colombians? It was just odd. I just didn't expect that. And I love that we got from Schaefer, got a promotion.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's how it is in this country. People fail up.
But yeah, so a couple of I mean, I have several scenes that I want to say that I thought was really funny or enjoyable. The big fella on the plane at the very beginning.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the tension of him taking off that first time and them all taking bets. Because when I was watching, I was like, ooh, like when he was like scraping against the planes, it was actually making me squirm in my seat. And the reason I see movies, I talk about this all the time, is I want to get emotion out of me. And if it's a scary movie, I want to get scared. If it's an emotional movie, I want to, tear up. If it's a funny movie, I want to laugh. And if it's a suspenseful movie, I want to feel suspense. And this kind of movie is a bunch of those things. And that scene made me feel suspenseful. It made me actually squirm around in my seat. And that shows me that I care. If I don't care about a movie, I'm just sitting there watching it and being like, okay, right, like, this is happening. Something is happening. And that worked for me because there was so much setup.
Emotionally.
So much setup of him trying to worry about weight and him saying no with things. Like, I'm not going to be stupid. I'm not going to be like these people that are dead in these trees. Like, like, we have to do this. We have to do this smart. And I really like.
Well, and what was so great about that, along with that tension, is you already know it's going to work out because there's still like an hour left of the movie or hour and a half, and so you know it's going to work, but you're still like super tense about it. So.
Yeah.
Which
is impressive.
There's also a scene in Colombia of them throwing rolls of cash into a bullpen and watching people go after it for sport.
Yeah, the excess in that whole sequence was great.
Right. I have to also give a shout out to the sex on the plane scene. He brought a new type of Mile High Club into the mix. To show them, I don't know how they filmed that because
for real, they actually did. Like they dove the plane to get that zero-G effect when they were floating up in the air. I'm
assuming I'm assuming it probably wasn't a plane, and then they have a false cockpit like in the back of it.
No, he flew all the planes. Tom Cruise flew the planes for real.
You're lying.
I'm dead serious.
He wasn't flying the plane during that sex scene.
Pilot's license.
He was not flying the scene during a sex scene.
I'm pretty sure he was.
I just want to make sure you're not making a joke, and it sounds like you're not making a joke. But I seriously doubt he was flying that, but maybe he was. But also, I just don't think that angle would work. I just have to say that, but that's the very movie angle. Anyway, there's a scene also where he's like reading a Al Capone book too that I really appreciate. Little tiny things like that I really appreciate. There was an editing issue where he started talking about the Reagan administration and what they're doing in Nicaragua, and it was still 1980 when Reagan was not president yet. He was still running for president at that part.
Right, I caught that too.
That was an issue for me. I was like, what? Why is it doing that? Like, why wouldn't
I did like the intercutting of the different Reagan movies with what he was talking about,
Yes.
Ronald Reagan, his films, taking people out, and it's great.
And the Just Say No scene was really good too. Was perfect at that time. But other things too, like the cross that he's given in when he first takes off in the plane. You see that later in the cockpit. Still, he keeps that cross.
Yeah,
and I appreciate that. Even though he never seems to be a holy man at all or a God-fearing man,
obviously. I think for him it was like, well, I successfully took off and I had this, so I'm just going to keep this thing around.
And then some fun things like the gas truck, the DEA, like wasting their gas for their planes because he's so knowledgeable on them. And then the pilot Bill fell asleep, and we thought this was going to turn into a tragedy or something.
That was outstanding. That moment.
They just went and tapped him, and then
that was great. That part, I loved it.
I really enjoyed that too. It just adds to, I don't know. There's just scenes like that movies that don't care don't put in, right? And it just adds so much more to the enjoyment because the movie was fun, right? I think
absolutely.
When he crashed and he's covered in coke. Yeah. And all I could think at the time was he just breathed all that in. He has to be like completely
totally high, right?
Coked out right now. And then they kind of didn't like beat you over the head with it, but the way he was pedaling the bike really funny. It was adding to it, and then him like giving the wads of cash to the people and stuff like that. I thought that was. Then the historical figures, like when they're like Governor Clinton, and when you see Oliver North and stuff like that, I thought that was a nice touch. I wish they had. I mean, I don't know. They could have been really cheesy, but I wish we actually saw a Governor Clinton, or I wish they had a George Jung. Like I was fully expecting to meet him, which is Johnny Depp's character from Blow. But I guess he was in Miami and different place. But I think that I don't know. Maybe it would have seemed too much like look, we have to try to get everybody in or so. But and I love probably one of my favorite scenes is I'm gonna walk out of here, which was in the trailer. And he's like, "You guys should have taken the caddies." That whole scene was just freaking.
Well, I love how confident he was, and then he gets outside, and you realize he didn't actually know that was gonna happen.
Right. I think he didn't seem to actually figure out that he was okay until that phone call came in. He's like, "Oh, I know what that phone call is." Yeah.
And he actually gets killed because of that.
Yeah.
The deal he makes with them, he actually dies over. Lastly, too, is the shoot the gringos scene, and the dude pees himself.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That worked. I mean, that was intense. That was really intense right there.
Beyond intense. It was
because I mean that was the way that the trailer ended. So you didn't know if that would be the end of his journey right there either.
Right. Here's the gringos. He's like, I was messing with you. He's like, you got me. Well, man, what a freaking mean.
Not funny.
Yeah,
for me, the moment that was just like, was the moment where after that sequence, they're at home watching television and those pictures came up, and I'm like, they're done.
Oh yeah,
they're done.
All I was thinking is, hopefully they're gonna protect you, and then that never came up. That's what it was like. That's what I was like. Damn, why isn't he even asking for protection? Maybe he thought it was futile, but I think I would have liked to see him beg for protection of some sort. I don't necessarily need to see the character beg, but not just to give up. And again, that it just went on for so long. The community service sequence for me just went on a little bit. I don't know if you guys.
I felt like the pace of the film certainly did change up there, and I think I think for me, what kind of ultimately made, especially the fact that he died in the end, good, which is the fact like it felt like a fitting end for this man who for so long had essentially kind of just done things to do things. And I felt like the community sequences for me was basically kind of almost teasing like, oh, is this going to be one of those films where he learns his lesson in the end and becomes a good man? I'm like, no, like this film has not earned that. Like, don't end there. And then the fact that they didn't made me like, all right, sweet. This feels appropriate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Anything else you want to add, or have we covered this film from?
No, it's great. I'm very excited to see what Doug Liman does next. I know the director; he's doing a film with Daisy Ridley.
He's also doing Live, Die, and Repeat.
Yes, yeah. It sounds like they're doing, which is get rid of that title first of all. But yeah, it will be very interesting.
Originally, and he obviously gets what he wants at this point.
Right, but the thing is I feel like Tom Cruise has always been looking for another big franchise. And I feel like oftentimes his bigger films, like the reason he did a Jack Reacher 2 wasn't because the first one was so successful. I think he just wanted another franchise in addition to the Mission Impossible films. And for me, I would much prefer the Live, Die, Repeat world become a franchise if that's possible. So
interesting enough, the director is signed for Live, Die, Repeat, but Tom Cruise is not yet signed for it.
Tom Cruise conceived of the concept. I thought,
according to IMDb, which is the most reliable source. I just don't know why they wouldn't show. Why would they would show Doug Liman, but not show Tom Cruise on there? So I'm just assuming that
they're still negotiating.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some type of negotiations happening, but I don't know. I'm really pessimistic about Top Gun 2. It's like almost. I guess Mad Max is the only time that you do a sequel that far out, and it works.
Well, and
with Mad Max, they switched up so much stuff.
Yeah, I get that's more of a reboot than a sequel.
No?
But
exactly,
we're about to see how it works with Blade Runner next week. So that's
it'll be interesting. I don't know with Top Gun. I was interested in it. I think that a big reason that they're still pushing forward in it is really more of a tribute to Tony Scott than anything else, because he wanted to make this movie for years.
Right, and he was working on it too, I think, right?
He was developing the script. They hadn't finalized it, but yeah. So I think this is more of a tribute to him than anything else. But I hope that it's good. I thought it was going to be more of a passing the torch to a younger audience. I thought that he was going to be more of like the Tom Skerritt character in this and just kind of like overseeing what was going on. But the fact that it's Top Gun Maverick, I mean, no, this movie's going to be about him, clearly. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
We'll see. I got to watch the first one first, apparently, so.
Come on, yes, apparently, like you need to be told.
I know.
Like, go watch that right now. Sign off and go watch it.
Anyway, Karen, thank you for coming on. It was awesome that you came on, and I hope we have you on here again.
Absolutely, this was a lot of fun. Thanks, guys.
Probably gonna be bugging you to come on. So be prepared.
Just forewarning.
Where can people follow you again on the internet, Chris Hartwell?
Yes, for sure. You guys can find me on Twitter as well as on YouTube. Simply search Chris Hartwell or The Heartbeat on YouTube.
And how is Hartwell spelled?
I think it's H-A-R-T, if I remember correctly.
Because people could spell H-E-A-R-T.
It's a play on the words.
It's a play on words for my name. Where can people follow you again on the internet, Karen M. Peterson?
That is me. I am at Karen M. Peterson on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm also at awardcircuit.com. That's awards with an S.
And for me, you can follow me at Schuckster. That's SCHUCKSTER. For the show, you can follow us at The Watch and Talk on Twitter or Instagram. You can go to our Facebook at facebook.com/The Watch and Talk. Email us at thewatchtalk@gmail.com or go to our website, thewatchandtalk.com. Next week, we're going to be reviewing Blade Runner again, like we said. And that's it. I'm Dylan Schuck.
I'm Chris Hartwell.
I'm Karen Peterson.
And we'll see you next week.
Cheers.
Bye.
All right, guys.
Love it.